If you would like to support the farm and you'd like to buy Sassy some real horse food, go to AllisonWinePromo.com and get yourself a great glass of Malbec. These are extremist altitude Malbecs from 6,000 to 9,000 feet, and the producer's banging on the sliding glass door right now. So I'm going to make this commercial very quick. Help me get a babysitter. 50% off the wine, 50% off shipping. This is wine from places that are so remote, you might die going there. So don't do that. Just support my work and stay in the comfort of your grandma's living room and be an extremist like you're dreaming of without going to federal prison, and get some AllisonWinePromo.com. So what we're talking about today is USAID or USAID. I'm not really sure how exactly you say it. I will say I have a little bit of a familiarity with them, at least from 12, 13 years ago. Well, a little bit more than that. I went to Haiti after the earthquake and helped build a school with my church. And I saw all of the USAID, USAID tents all over the place. And when you talk to people who have been going down there for a long time, or people who live there doing work, they talk about the problems with that agency and how it's there to aid, but I think there are some fair questions to be asked about whether, in fact, it's doing that or if it maintains crippling poverty, and where is the money going? And anyway, where is your tax dollar going when it comes to USAID? Well, it turns out it is going towards trying to silence people like me telling you anything critical about them, probably, but about a lot of things that they consider disinformation. Again, this coming from Mike Benz, who's been on the show, worked in basically like the internet agency for the Trump administration for a little bit, and cyber portfolio. I don't remember the exact statement, but it basically like managing internet workings under the Trump administration. And he is tweeting America First here, who said, our lawsuit against Biden's State Department just unearthed USAID's disinformation primer, revealing evidence that the government's plot to promote censorship initiatives. Okay, revealing evidence of the government's plot to promote censorship initiatives. And here's what it reads. Discussions on disinformation and misinformation often revolve around assumptions of state actors driving the issue. However, problematic information more regularly originates from network of alternative sites and anonymous individuals who have created their own alt media online spaces. These alternative spaces include message board and digital distribution platforms, e.g. Reddit, 4chan, or Discord. This is my favorite. Conspiracy news sites, e.g. RT and 21st Century Wire. So RT News is conspiracy news sites, according to USAID, and gaming sites. So watch out for people who are playing video games. By the way, if you play video games, not trying to hate on you here, but if you're playing your video games and you know what, that's gotten you so addicted to them that you never want to leave your room, but you still want to be an extremist, again, AllisonWinePromo.com. Drink some AllisonWinePromo.com while you're playing your video games. According to Elliot Higgins, founder of Bellingcat, that's who they're citing, the alternative media ecosystem has become a prominent driver of disinformation. Yet not many organizations, journalists, or researchers are engaged in this topic. Oh, right. Yeah, like no one's paying attention to people like me. And that's why there has been like gazillions of dollars thrown at trying to get us ripped offline, pressuring the tech companies, our tax dollars being used to keep you from getting any information. Yeah, like no one knows about the quote threat to democracy. There isn't constantly articles or videos about this being purported by the mainstream media. You're right. It's just this dark space that no one ever talks about. Nobody knows about people like me. I mean, we're just out there in this black hole. And what are these people smoking? Anyway, okay, so they're saying the alternative media ecosystem is a prominent driver of disinformation, but you know, all these academics and journalists just don't know about it. They're not, I mean, and I'm sitting here like, oh, right. Yeah, like they're not constantly coming after us and attacking us, trying to make it look like we don't have the right to be speaking here. This present failure to address alternative media systems threatens and undermines other efforts to counter disinformation. Now, this is dated 2/27/2024. I'm assuming that that's when this was written, but I guess it's possible that that's when this was released. I mean, was this released in 2005? Is this really being written in 2024? this idea that we need to really address alternative media systems because it threatens and undermines efforts to counter disinformation. I mean, what am I the only one who's been paying attention that this is exactly what the last, like, say, 6 or more years has been, focusing on alternative media systems and trying to get them shut down? I mean, it's just crazy to me that they think that there's not enough effort. I mean, that should really tell us something, that they think there's not enough effort, that the censorship that we have been dealing with over the last 8 years is not enough. It's not enough. We need to do more. Continuing on, while information on alternative systems such as conspiracy theories may seem farcical or preposterous to an outsider, to users, these spaces enable them to collaborate and validate their own claims. So, yeah, these conspiracy theories are farcical and preposterous to the outsider. But anyway, going back to what they say, interpretations of the world that differ from, quote, mainstream sources. And they put that in quotes. So what does that mean exactly? Now they have a footnote there, so it's probably quoting somebody specifically. With this, individuals contribute their own research, and this has another footnote too, to the larger discussion, collectively reviewing and validating each other to create a populist expertise that justifies, shapes, and supports their alternative beliefs. So let's pick that apart for a second, because I think what the quotes are mostly referring to footnotes. And if they're putting it in italics, that's what they want to emphasize. That's what I'm reading into this. So somebody's talking about mainstream sources. They don't define it what they mean here. As these discussions become larger, mainstream, again in quotes, institutions may pick up on the issue, but because they do not understand the platform or alternative media system more generally, they may unknowingly provide wide coverage of misleading information. Let me ask you this question. What does the media quote more often? People like me in alternative media, or as if we're fact? Okay, I'm saying not just quote us as attacking us for being nuts. I mean, like, quoting us and spreading it without realizing it. Who do they quote more? Who do they spread more? The government or us? And it's who gets it wrong? So let me just ask you, like, when it comes to the underlying source of disinformation, they're talking specifically about misleading disinformation, and in some ways coordinated efforts to do so. And they're like, because the mainstream institutions don't know better, they just keep pushing it. Who does the media push the most? The government, or like me and Viva and Barnes and TLAV? It just cracks me up. Clyde do something in Canada. Like, who's getting quoted the most? Us or the FBI or the CIA or USAID? And who has the biggest platform to spread propaganda and disinformation? I mean, yes, that is a rhetorical question. If you don't know the answer, keep watching. Going back to their italics on populist expertise. So they're picking up on this idea, this trend, if you will, of populism rising in these alternative media spaces. And apparently that is very concerning for them, because that is in italics. They're saying that we here in the alternative media are offering a populist expertise that people are just buying into because it's validating their own alternative beliefs. But isn't that interesting that that's what they're the most concerned about, at least as far as how they identify what the expertise is? Because they could say medical, or they could say radical, or they could say uh, wrong, uh, unfactual, false. Like, they could have said false expertise, but what they're saying is populist expertise. I find that really interesting. So again, so if we put this whole thing together, and again, this is just a screenshot, so what's before it and what's after it, I don't know. This is what Mike shared, and I thought it was really interesting. And his tweet here is, here is USAID deliberately targeting gaming sites for censorship to stop ordinary citizens from forming interpretations of the world that differ from mainstream sources. This is the US government using your tax dollars, plotting to stop people from disagreeing with the media. So yeah, so let's just go back for a second and review, okay, and just summarize this. What they're essentially saying is that they're concerned with non-mainstream sources, that this is shaping people's opinions. And when they talk about RT News, for instance, that's considered conspiracy, which is hilarious. And finally, it's because we're all sharing our populist view of the world. And that's concerning to them, that the people, if we're going to define it that way, are coming up with their own ideas. Hey, what is going on there? Okay, let's go back and review it, because there's something else I want to discuss. But before we do that, don't forget, if you are looking for an online pharmacy that does not cull your data, your medical data, you can go to TeleRx and use promo code Allison for 20% off. I got my EpiPen here because it was 50% off what my local pharmacy needed. I am all about natural health. You guys know that. But I have to get an EpiPen because I am at risk now of going into anaphylactic shock. And I have 2 kids at home that I'm often by myself with. So I was glad to be able to afford an EpiPen and not have to leave it at the counter like I did the first time, because it was $500 at my local pharmacy. They don't ask you any of your medical information. You don't have to submit anything about yourself. You just click on the box that says, I consent to understanding what this is for. And you get it really quickly. I have really appreciated them when it comes to my current medical issues, because I didn't have to go get a doctor prescription, even though I had one. I got one from urgent care when I went in with my reaction to getting stung. But I didn't have to submit that. I didn't have to submit any pictures. I didn't have to do a doctor's appointment. I didn't have to upload any medical data or anything like that. And they have arisen, unlike a lot of the other sort of big pharmacies that come up during the COVID era to protect medical freedom. They have arisen as really one of only, I don't know, maybe they are the only one, I'm not totally sure, that doesn't ask you a bunch of medical information that they're going to store in some kind of database. So protects medical privacy, it promotes medical freedom, and you've got the choice. You're back in the driver's seat. TeleRx.com, 20% off with promo code Allison. So going back to what I wanted to say here, I think my biggest takeaway really is that, number one, the populism trend is concerning our government. No shock there. But number two, that let's say they really believe this. They really believe that there's more attention that needs to be directed towards these alternative sites. That's shocking to me. That is shocking to me, that we are in probably one of the greatest errors eras of censorship, definitely during my lifetime, but probably well, I don't want to say in the modern era, because they do this all the time. But it's just easier for them to cull information at this point because we're all on the internet. So it's a little bit, I think, it's easier to get on there and take stuff off. We're all using sites that are much easier to control. That's just my opinion. Maybe you disagree. So it's easier for them. They can do more harm, and yet they think they need to do more. That's fascinating to me, that they think they need to do more. And they also think that the threat to democracy through disinformation is us and not them. And that the media just unknowingly spreads disinformation because of people like me. When the reality is, we in the media, because I was in the media for a long time, we spread information from them that's wrong. We're like stenographers for the government or hospitals or whatever big special interest Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, is trying to get us to use, because we're just like, oh, yeah, I mean, they're big, they're rich, they must be right. I'm not sure why we trust these groups or why we trusted the government, why I, frankly, did that for a long time before I started realizing how they were targeting doctors, for instance, that were just not part of their groupthink. And that's slowly over time started to wake me up. And then eventually, of course, it led to the end of my career. But for a long time, I just trusted what they were saying, and we would just recycle it. I think in part because I don't know, we would get these press releases and we would think that we could just copy and paste and repeat what they were saying. But if somebody else made the claims of the government and it was one person, or say they were making the claims against the government and it was one person, then we would have to be like, if you're a whistleblower, we would have to really look at a lot of documents to prove it. We would have to maybe talk to other people that you would let us connect with, say off the record or something, just to confirm certain things. We would never just take one person's word for it. But yeah, when the government sends us a press release, the Department of Health sends a press release, the CDC sends a press release, USAID sends a press release, the Department of Defense sends a press release, we just run with it. That is so common. So I am genuinely shocked that I mean, maybe I'm not shocked. Maybe I'm not shocked because it's been a long couple of years getting to this point of realizing that I think these people genuinely believe what they're saying. I really do. Or they're just big fat liars and they're pushing harder because the alternative media space is concerning them. I don't know. Either way, go to AllisonMorrow.locals.com. Keep me in business. Really appreciate the editorial board. We're going to click off Rumble and it's going to be supporters only from here on out. A couple more minutes with you guys. See everybody, whether you're watching this on YouTube later, you're on Rumble now. See you next time. Oh, wait. Also, don't forget, you can send me mail. P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida 34432. Thanks, everybody. See you on Rumble later and on YouTube another time.